Welcome back. Today we're looking at phrase 2 of our Broadsword Assessment Choreo. By now, you should have decided whether you are going to be Joan or Talbot, and you should have rehearsed and performed phrase 1. So now, let's take a look where we last left off with our adventurous heroes. So Talbot had just evaded upstage right. Talbot, in a fit of rage, is going to step downstage right, looking up at Joan, who is now upstage left. We are now going to be right foot forward. So this fight is going to start left foot forward for phrase 1, right foot forward for phrase 2, and then sneak peek for third phrase, we're going to go back to left foot forward. So it's going to go left, right, left. So here we are. Right foot forward, we are downstage right. We are going to start by prepping a fishing line cut to Joan's right arm. Joan passes back, we cut, Joan parries 3. Joan is now going to do a bind through, attempting to cut our left hip. So she cuts, we pass back, keeping our sword high as she expels our blade on her right side. Joan is then going to weight shift, prepping a fishing line cut to our front hip. We're going to pass back to a full counter parry 2. And as soon as we have done the parry 2, we are immediately going to do a direct riposte towards Joan's right hip, or her rear hip. Joan weight shifts, we weight shift with her, she parries, and does an immediate indirect riposte towards our front hip. We pass back, full counter parry 7. All right? Now this is the same thrust attack sequence that we did in the thrust attack video. So it starts with a parry, direct riposte, and then finishes with an indirect riposte and a counter parry. The only difference is the way that we get into that sequence. So let's take a look at this one more time. We start right foot forward. I begin by cutting to Joan's right arm. Joan parries 3, binds through. We keep our blade high as it's expelled. Then she cuts to our front hip. We pass back, full counter parry 2, direct riposte without weight shifting forward yet. Joan weight shifts back, then we weight shift forward. Joan parries, indirect riposte towards our front hip. We pass back, full counter parry 7. Now, here's where it gets fun. We're going to do a bind over to core a core. Now, I mentioned this in the Paris de Feu and the yield parry videos, but we haven't done it yet. All right? So here we go. We are going to do a bind over to core a core, and we're going to start with the same biting the blade action that we would use for a pressure glide yield parry. So that means I've parried here at 7. I twist my wrists to get the true edge of the blade onto their blade. All right, so I parry 7, bite the blade, and I bring it up and over, and I step forward with my left foot, stepping to my right. And I bring the swords down. Now their foot is in front of mine, with their hip and thigh resting against my hip and thigh, our shoulders resting together, and my sword on top of their sword. Joan is then going to grab onto the fort of my blade with one hand as I push her blade down, expelling it, and she drops her blade. But she's holding onto our blade now. She weight shifts back. I give her my weight. She is going to body barge me off to the side and then pull on my blade as I am expelled this way, and she is left holding on to my sword. So in this fight, the two combatants switch swords at the end of phrase 2. So one more time, let's take a look at that from parry 7. I bite the blade, bind over, stepping to my right with my left foot. Joan grabs my blade, I expel hers. She weight shifts and throws me off as she grabs my blade and pulls it out of my hands. So let's take a look at that phrase all together from Talbot's perspective. We start right foot forward. Weight shift, prepping a fishing line cut to Joan's right arm. We pass, Joan parries 3. Joan binds through, I pass back, keeping my blade high. She then preps a cut to my right hip. I pass back, full counter parry 2. And immediately direct riposte we weight shift, it's parry, immediately indirect riposte, pass back, full counter parry 7. Bite the blade, bind over, Joan grabs my sword, expel, disarm, and weight shift, throw, disarm. And that is the end of phrase 1 from Talbot's perspective. One more time, a little faster. Right foot forward. Prep fishing line cut to arm, bind through. Prep fishing line cut to hip, full counter parry 2, direct riposte, weight shift, parry, indirect riposte, pass back, parry 7. Bind over to core, disarm, weight shift, disarm, body barge. Now, let's take a look at phrase 2 from Joan's perspective. Joan is standing upstage left, also right foot forward. Joan is inviting, opening herself up, inviting Talbot to take an attack because Joan knows exactly what Talbot's going to do. Joan is weight shifted forward, taunting Talbot. Talbot takes the bait and attacks our front shoulder. We pass back, full counter parry 3, and then bind through, expelling their blade. We weight shift back, prepping our own fishing line cut to Talbot's right hip. Talbot passes back, does a full counter parry 2, and does a direct riposte. We weight shift, parry, indirect riposte. Talbot passes back and parries. Talbot then bites our blade and does a bind over to core. We step to our left with our right foot. Our sword is under Talbot's sword. Our hip and thigh is on top of Talbot's hip and thigh, which is stepped in right behind us, and our shoulders are together. I take my right hand off of my broadsword and grab Talbot's broadsword on the fort. Talbot pushes our sword down and we drop it. Now when you drop it, please make sure that you are not dropping the queon onto the ground where it can bounce, but you are dropping the flat of the blade onto the ground. Then we grab Talbot's blade, weight shift, and we shuck Talbot off of us with a body barge and yank the sword back. Now here's where it becomes a little bit dangerous if you've actually got a sword in your hands. You need to watch out for the queons. As you pull that sword, you do not want to whack yourself in the knee with your queon. So you need to keep those queons up and down and pay very close attention to the path of the queons so it does not clip either of your knees or elbows. All right, so I've grabbed onto the sword, Talbot gives me Talbot's weight, I body barge and yank, paying very close attention to where those queons are going. All right, let's take a look at phrase 2, all together from Joan's perspective. We are right foot forward, and weight shifted forward, taunting. Talbot attacks our right shoulder, pass back, counter parry 3, bind through, fishing line cut to left hip, parry 2, direct riposte, weight shift, parry, indirect riposte, passing step, full counter parry 7. Bites the blade, bind over to core. We grab their blade, disarm, grab, weight shift, body barge, disarm. All right, let's take a look at that one last time, a little bit faster. Right foot forward. Fishing line, right foot forward. And Talbot attacks first because we are inviting. Pass back, parry, bind through, fishing line, hip, riposte, parry, riposte, parry, bind over, grab, disarm, weight shift, body barge, pull. All right, that is phrase 2. Again, please rehearse it, make it look great, and then come back to finish it up with phrase 3.